Hello, this is Bill Bittner from the ZVM Development Lab in Endicott, New York, the birthplace of IBM. This week, IBM made a preview announcement for ZVM version 7 Release 1, and I'd like to take a few minutes to tell you about it, as well as a shift in our strategy for delivering new function. If you have questions that aren't answered here, feel free to drop me an email at the address shown here, bittnerb@us.ibm.com. When I spoke about ZVM 6.4 in the past, I spoke about it being a customer-driven release. That is, the content of ZVM 6.4 was largely decided by our customers. While we have always worked with our customers, we have become more open about our plans, and more importantly, more open to hear of your pain points. This includes from an overall release lifecycle management perspective. A lot of feedback that we heard in the past few years fell into two general areas: wanting greater predictability for releases and having shorter wait time for useful new function. Through these iterative dialogues, we arrived at the new ZVM release cadence and what I'll refer to as the continuous delivery strategy. For the new release cadence, there are a few key points to cover. There will be a new release of ZVM every 2 years. Feedback and history led us to go with the GA being in the third quarter of that year, and feedback also guided us to avoid the same year as ZOS, so the new releases will be in even years. In the past, when a new release went GA, the previous release would immediately be withdrawn from marketing. This changes with the new approach. We will continue to market the previous release for approximately 18 months after a new release goes GA. As you'll see, this provides more migration options. Releases will stay in service for about 4.5 years, which means that during the last 6 months of service for any release, there will be 2 newer releases to which one could migrate. In general, releases in this era will be a roll-up of the service and SPEs from the previous release and will not offer a lot of base enhancements. However, there are times when work is complete at that time or when changes are better done on the release boundary, and you'll see new enhancements then. We'll see how this is the case with ZVM 7.1. Now, let's talk about the continuous delivery strategy. This is the idea that most enhancements to ZVM will be shipped as small programming enhancements in the service stream. Many of you know these as SPEs. We will continue to use the sponsor user program for these items. For those not familiar with it, the sponsor user program is an engagement with one or more customers to ensure that an enhancement addresses your needs. We determine this as early as possible. You could think of it as an early design review with iterations that involves customers. There's also customer testing similar to early support programs of the past when it makes sense. To facilitate both IBM and customer testing, there will usually be a set of SPEs targeted to be released as an informal group or bundle, usually within a few weeks of each other. However, they are still viewed and ordered as individual APARs and PTFs. To improve information for planning and to replace the idea of announce letters, there is a new information on the VM homepage that describes these continuous delivery enhancements. We'll cover that in more detail later in this discussion. Now, let's review what this looks like from a visual perspective. Okay, let's play through this cadence and see what it looks like. For review, remember the key aspects I mentioned earlier, and bear in mind this isn't meant to give you exact dates. We'll still do announcement letters for release-related dates, like withdrawal from marketing and end of service. So if we look at the next 6 years and see how this looks, we'll only use quarters here for granularity so that you can get a feel for the concepts. As you know, ZVM 6.4 is currently the only release being marketed and in service today, and it will be marketed into the future. When ZVM 6.4 became available in November of 2016, there was some base function in it, significant base function, and since that time, we have also shipped significant new function, encrypted paging, vSwitch enhanced load balancing, etc., in the form of SPEs. You'll see these bundles of SPEs represented by small rectangles with letters inside, so the rectangle with an A in this case. Watch for the rate of SPEs to ZVM 6.4 to slow down as we prepare for the ZVM 7.1 release. During this time, 6.4 will continue to have RSUs and corrective service, but will stop shipping SPEs except for the required support items such as processor compatibility. This lines up with the GA of 7.1, which, as we've discussed, is a third quarter 2018, that is even year, deliverable in the 2-year cadence. Now you start to see SPEs shipping and going out for 7.1. At this point, we're not putting these back on 6.4 as that has become the stable release with less disruption. At some point, there will be an announcement of withdrawal from marketing and it would no longer be orderable for 6.4. At a later point, 6.4 would be announced for end of service. In our example here, first quarter of 2021. All right. We're now 2 years into the life cycle of 7.1. In this phase, we slow down the SPEs to 7.1 and move to service, RSUs, and processor support only, so you know what's coming. 7.2 would go GA in third quarter of 2020 as part of the 2-year cadence. And we begin again with SPEs going out to 7.2 and not on the earlier releases. In time, 7.1 end of marketing will be announced, and the life cycle continues in this fashion. As you can see, this gives customers on the 6.4 choices. They could immediately go to ZVM 7.1 because they want to stay on the most current support, or they could wait until an exciting SPE comes along and then move to pick that up. Or they could choose to stay on 6.4 to avoid new code and disruption, and perhaps move to 7.1 when it goes to corrective service only in third quarter of 2020. So there's lots of flexibility possible with this structure. Now that you understand the cadence, let's talk about 7.1. Hopefully the earlier charts helped you understand that a base release does not have a lot of brand new function. For ZVM 7.1, we did a preview announce where we described the high-level aspects of the release, including a target of third quarter for GA. A future announcement will be made for the general availability with more details. You may have had question of why a new version. The primary reason was to change some business templates to allow 2 releases of ZVM to be marketed at the same time. That wasn't possible under the version 6 template. I would also argue that the new approach is significant enough that it would be worthy of a new version. It's important to remember that if you have been paying your SNS, you are entitled to a new version of ZVM in the same way you're entitled to a new release. As was alluded in the Statement of Direction in 2016, there will be a new architecture level set for ZVM 7.1. Support for the Z196 and Z114 is dropped, so you'll need a Z Enterprise EC12, BC12, or newer machine to run 7.1. And as we see a greater need to address 24x365 availability, the single system image and live guest relocation will be a part of the base product, no longer a separate priced feature. ZVM 7.1 will have all the SPEs that went out for 6.4. Listed here are just a few of the highlights. Additionally, some ZVM dump scalability enhancements are going into 7.1 that will not be an SPE to 6.4. There will also be significant changes to supply a foundation for future SPEs. This is a different approach, but an important one. By making some of these foundation changes in the base, it will make it easier to provide new function in the service stream, and in some cases it will minimize the breadth of the parts that are hit with that service. At the start of the presentation, we mentioned being able to learn more about what enhancements are being worked. To that end, new information was introduced last year to the VM homepage. This continuous delivery page is a different approach for us. Here we will share plans about enhancements that are being considered or in the works. So this is a rather dynamic page. It's recommended that you subscribe to it, as on most of the VM homepage, you'll find a left-hand navigation bar. One of the links there is Notify Me. For any of the VM pages, just click this link and fill in your email address. You'll then be sent an email whenever the subject page is updated. You can then check the Change Summary box on this page to get a feel for what has changed. Let's look a bit closer at the content. For each enhancement item on the page, you'll see a set of attributes ranging from a description of the item to comments on compatibility to details on actual service information when made available. Interestingly, we worked with sponsor users to improve this page, and we continue to be open to feedback. Let me comment a little on the target availability field. This is meant for planning purposes, is not a commitment, as the disclaimers will point out. The target availability may start out as TBD, as we're just sharing the idea and looking for customer support and feedback on the idea. Then over time, as more work is done, we may list a quarter in which we suspect to be able to release it. Or if the plan is more solid, it might be a month. At times, we'll learn things from the sponsor users or design or testing where we realize we need more time or, in rare cases, less time and adjust the target availability accordingly. While we'll do our best to be accurate, bear in mind that things change, and this is another reason to subscribe to notifications for this page. Based on customer feedback, the page has a couple of navigation features. Near the top is a sort of table of contents shown on the right here with each SBE listed and a hyperlink to that part of the page. Additionally, there's a floating triangle or pyramid that one can click to return to the top of the page at any time. Before I close, let me give a shout out to Kerry Wilson for his efforts on the continuous delivery webpage and the sponsor user program, and to Reed Mullen and Les Gear for their help on these charts, and most importantly to the entire worldwide ZVM development team. So hopefully you now understand the 2-year cadence starting with ZVM 7.1 and the continuous delivery strategy for ZVM. With that, have a great day, and remember, keep calm and virtualize on.